This is a U.S.-China Media Brief produced by the UCLA Asian American Studies Center.
Let me answer your other question, which was how do American readers know the truth either? Well, of course, that's a good question.
Yeah.
In talking about China, I didn't mean to be saying that everything in the United States is the opposite or something like that, of course. And if you invite me back, I'll give you a talk on what I think is wrong with the American press. Good question. As for projecting the future, I mean, everything you say is fine, and I agree with it, and I can't predict the future, though. It's hard enough for me to figure out the past without trying to predict the future. I hope, of course. I hope these values come back, and I'm not as pessimistic as my friend Wang Li. Yeah.
You kind of led in your talk talking about how if you looked, you would see positive values or positive developments in terms of this quest for moral values. And I think maybe you mentioned religion, the return of all the different kinds of religions, which is of course a very important aspect of this, this almost blind quest for values to fill in the vacuum, that was left over by socialism. And I don't know. You ended the talk, with all the negatives. So I'm curious to hear whether the next step for you would you be looking at the positives, or might be some of the positive examples of, sort of maybe a certain degree of success in finding, new moral values in this vacuumed state.
Yeah. No, I should have been clearer about that. I meant my last 2 or 3 examples to be positive. Ru Yan and Xu Sanduo, and even Song Fanping in the Xiongdi novel. Those 3 were supposed to mean positive in this sense of, ordinary, kind of bland, but representing normal, responsible behavior that I think the reader and the populace at large would identify with. That's the way we would like to be. And I don't see this commented on when people talk about the novels and so on, and the anti-corruption novels, everything's negative and so on. So I do see signs of, praising's the wrong word, admiring through fiction the models of people that are decent to each other.
But that's also socialist legacy, right? The positive characters with,
it's pre-socialist too. I would argue that that's fundamentally human, that's before socialism or Confucianism or any ism, and in our society too, just this daily life decency. And I would say too, of all the negative things, that I really believe the theory that, you've studied satire and irony in fiction, and satire doesn't work if you're not implicitly upholding something, right? You can't just make fun of something for being wrong or ridiculous if you don't have a strong notion of what's unridiculous. So I read the anti-corruption novels as positive if you flip them over. Shouldn't be this way.
On that note, my take of your talk is that it is extremely positive and hopeful because it is such an ancient culture, and those values of decency, if we in the world want to survive an onslaught of that materialism, then because it is such an old culture and it's so deeply ingrained in their DNA or whatever, it's so deeply in them.
Cultural DNA, let's say.
Yeah, that decency, as you said, in the Mao area, it all the time was really what stayed there. And then there is hope in that, because let's say we in the West, we are in a very bad, as she's in a very bad situation. So I think your talk is, I really am very grateful to have heard it. It was a great talk.
Thank you.
Before we have further questions, if I could just make a quick announcement. There will be a reception after the question period is over. Perhaps we take 5 or 10 more minutes for questions.
It's up to you.
There's a
You're
lot.
in charge.
Why don't we go for 10 more minutes and then move over? We continue the questioning in the Rose Garden here over snacks and drinks and so forth. You're up.
Well, there's too many hands for 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Both of you. I don't know who I was pointing to.
I wanted to ask you if you felt that the great role that women have at the highest levels of societies today in China have had since, let's say, the beginning of the 20th century, an increasing role. If it changes the value, if that's going to be a change of values,
Women at
that
the...
can contribute to new values
You're asking about women in society or women at the top levels of the
No,
leadership?
they are increasing role at the higher levels, of politics, of the economy. That
Well, I don't
have
mean
an
that-
influence on values, public values.
I sympathize with the thrust of your question, but I can't agree with you. I think
It's a
that
question.
women have had a lot of...
Influence
You're,
in China.
yeah, the top. No, it's a male-dominated top. I think a lot of the women who are on the Central Committee and stuff are there because of their husbands or
No,
something.
I understand, but now they are getting more into their own, in having their own roles, as leaders.
For example?
You mean there are many and women at highest levels of society in China? It's a question.
No, there aren't, to be honest.
There are not.
No, I'm not going to say zero, but if you read the Central Committee, there are 100 people. How many on the Central Committee have new? Good afternoon. Maybe.
You see owners of a corporate, at an economical level, women who are leaders, of companies, and
Yeah.
CEOs. No, there aren't any.
Well, there's the woman who runs the Typing magazine. Various.
The preceding copyrighted program is a property of the University of California, Los Angeles. All rights reserved. It may be used freely for educational and not-for-profit activities. For other uses or to make an inquiry, please contact the Asian American Studies Center at UCLA.